So The Prestige was directed by Christopher Nolan, and it was co-written by him and his brother Jonathan Nolan. And it stars Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine, Andy Serkis, David Bowie, Rebecca Hall. And it's about these two dueling magicians played by Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman as they worked together for several years, but then an incident happened and they are now the bitterest of rivals. And when they both learn about this trick, about the disappearing man trick, they try to figure out their own ways to perform it and try to outperform the other and try to figure out how they're doing their tricks with unexpected consequences and very serious consequences. So The Prestige, I believe, was the first Christopher Nolan movie I ever saw, which is not really the best movie to get into when you want to get into Christopher Nolan movies. I definitely, at the time, I was like 13 and I wasn't really into movies like I am now. I was just mostly into like other type of movies, not this really. So it definitely didn't like it at first when I saw it. I didn't really get it. I felt it was very boring, and I just didn't find myself very fascinated with it. But every so often now, usually whenever Christopher Nolan has a new movie coming out, I try to go back and watch all of his movies again, including The Prestige. And over the years, kind of like with Memento and Insomnia, this movie has grown on me. So, what did I like about it? Well, the actors do a tremendous job in the movie. There will be a few spoilers here, so if you have not seen The Prestige, just go watch it. The actors do a really good job. Christian Bale in the movie does a really good job, and like at first it's like, okay, he's just kind of doing things and just kind of going through emotions, and it just kind of doesn't really make any sense. But with this, you can definitely eventually with the twist when it's revealed like how he's doing his trick, and you can definitely see like afterwards like, okay, this is what he's doing, and this is the character that he's playing right now, and it's definitely very fascinating to see. Hugh Jackman's also really good in this movie too as the rival magician. I thought he was really good too as like this is like one of the few dramatic roles at the time that Hugh Jackman really had, and he really sells it in the movie. This is not my favorite performance by him. My favorite performances by him were in Logan and Prisoners, but this is a pretty solid performance too. Michael Caine in this movie is also really good as this mentor to the main characters. He's really good in this movie. I think this may be my favorite role of his in a Christopher Nolan movie. Kind of seeing him as this guy who like is amazed by the whole spectacle of the illusion and kind of just seeing it kind of dwindle throughout the movie because of the rivalry between the two. That's also really fascinating. Rebecca Hall is also really good in this movie too, particularly in the scenes where she's kind of like getting to arguments with Christian Bale in this movie. She's decent. She's really good in the movie. Andy Serkis and David Bowie kind of steal the movie for a bit. Andy Serkis is whimsical, and David Bowie's surprisingly restrained in the movie. I thought they gave good performances too. And it kind of ties it the whole, because David Bowie plays Nikola Tesla in the movie, and obviously Nikola Tesla had that whole thing with Edison. Basically, Edison stole everything from him. And so it kind of goes back into the whole rivalry between the two main characters. So that is very fascinating. I didn't really realize that until like several years later. The movie is very well made. I do think the cinematography is really well done by Wally Pfister. It definitely looks fascinating, and I'm just surprised by like so many things that he's done with the camera work in this movie. The production design is also very well done in this movie. I also really like how well structured this movie is. This is like kind of like Memento. This movie is very well structured, and definitely one where it's like, okay, I definitely got to go back and try to see like where I missed things, because the movie is kind of structured like the whole how magicians kind of like show their tricks and such is like they have the pledge, they have the turn, and then they have the prestige. And basically, Nolan kind of has the structure the exact same way. He pledges to amaze you, and then the turn is basically like showing how they kind of do things, and then the prestige is the twist and like how it's really been done. I do think that is very fascinating to see. Also, what I really like about this movie is that there are so many things that are kind of just hidden in plain sight throughout the movie. And every time I go back and watch it, it's like, okay, I didn't see that before. So I'm glad I got to see this again. So I was like, now I kind of get this a lot more. And also really, it is a magic trick. He's not really a director of this movie. He's a magician. He's the illusionist in this movie. And I also really like seeing the lives of magicians kind of like going from like how they are on stage, like how they are backstage. I do think that is very fascinating to see. And also I really like some of the themes of this movie where basically the main theme I kind of got from it, rather than like the bitter rivalry between the two, was more what will amaze people more, the simplicity or the spectacle, because we're about to get into some spoilers with this movie, so if you've not seen it yet, just go watch it. the reveal with Hugh Jackman's character is that he has cloned himself through Tesla's machine, and that's how he's able to perform the trick. Whereas someone like Christian Bale's character, he has a twin brother, and so that kind of like goes back and it's like, okay, that's how you're doing all this, and that's how this is all possible, and like how you're behaving in certain scenes and how you're different in other scenes. It definitely does make sense, and I kind of feel like what amazes people more, is it the simplicity of it or the spectacle of it? And I feel like it's kind of a mixture of both, and that's something that I kind of got upon this recent viewing of the movie. So maybe if I rewatch it again, whenever Nolan releases another movie, I'll definitely catch another theme that I missed. So, is there anything about the movie I kind of don't care for? Even though most of the actors do a really good job, there was one that kind of stands out in my opinion that doesn't do a bad job per se, but they're not as good as everyone else, and that's Scarlett Johansson. Now, Scarlett Johansson, she's a good actress. I loved her in Marriage Story. I think she was robbed for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress that year, when she was nominated for Marriage Story and Jojo Rabbit. Here, I felt like her character was kind of bland. I didn't think she was really that. I don't know. She just, I don't know. I felt like her character was very thinly written. I felt like any actress could have played her role, and she didn't add much to the performance. I think it was just mostly a showdown between Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman in the movie. And I feel like, admittedly, this movie may be too complex for first viewing, so I feel like you have to see this movie at least twice to get it. It's not like a movie like Us, where it's like, that movie, it's like, that movie's clearly made to be shown multiple times, but you kind of get it after the first time. So you kind of have to see this movie multiple times in order to like fully get it. Which you can say that about a lot of Nolan's movies like Memento and Inception and such, but it's definitely something that's like, it takes a lot of time to like really get into. And also with that twist with Christian Bale, I'm just thinking like, if that's the twist, and like, how are these things possible? But how are some other things possible in this movie? Like, what is this other character doing? It kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense sometimes. But to me, this is a movie that I've definitely appreciated over the years. The actors do a tremendous job. The production values are really good. The themes are really interesting. It is incredibly well structured. And even though I don't like some of the acting and feel like it may be too complex for most viewers, like, if you want to get into Christopher Nolan's movies, I wouldn't recommend this movie first. I would probably recommend this movie last. But it's still a very fascinating movie to watch, especially on a different viewing, especially on multiple viewings. I'll give The Prestige 3 out of 4 stars. See it? So, what's your favorite movie about magicians? We have a few out there. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.